All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Okay. All right. Hi. So even though I'm still opening my eyes, I'm super excited about this morning. Um, this class, for those of you who haven't been with us, we've been going through the infamous ACI 13 course, right? Cutting. Everyone hates it or is scared of it or something like that. And somehow I felt like we broke through a barrier or something during this course. Um, we had over 100 people show up for 2/3 of the course every day live, and I think that shows, I think it's also the magic of what we're doing in the entire worldview network, right? Where like we're all starting to see how all these pieces are coming together and sort of how I would say, the genius of the master is leading us along the path, right? And when I first took this course, it was my first course, honestly. I think I've told you all that. Like, it was the first ACI course I taught, or excuse me, took. And I was like, I don't know, I had a weird karma. I didn't understand a thing, but I wanted more. It was like, just copy the homework, just put the answers down and move on. But I wanted more. And what it was giving us is it was giving us a taste into a way to perceive something that we can establish has to be there through our clear thinking. And I didn't really understand what it meant in the beginning. Hey, you had breakfast. I'm sorry. We're on a diet right now. Hey. I learned that my cat is more like a ninja, that she steals everybody's food. So the diet's not going very well, by the way. I wonder why I have to see that. Anyway, how do we establish an object, right? How do we establish something that we know is there through our clear thinking, but we're not able to perceive directly with our senses? And that's what we are studying in ACI 13, how to use one of our capacities, which is our own mind, our own reasoning, and turn it into an artwork, like an art of doing it, so that we can say, well, look, there's things that we haven't perceived directly, that we're not able to see with our eyes or hear with our ears or touch, right? Feel, taste. Should I let her eat and steal the food? I need a vote. I'll just give her what she wants. Maybe that'll help. Um, and the thing is, what we end up getting to is that when I even say the word something that has to be there that I can't perceive with my own senses, we're actually speaking incorrectly. What we're trying to figure out is what's not there. Something that we thought was there that perhaps we were experiencing through our sight, through some touch, or through like a taste of an exquisite croissant, okay, right? Or the beauty of somebody walking by, and then being like, what's not there? There's something not there. Okay. And so how do we get at that? Right. And of course, what we're talking about is we're talking about emptiness. We're talking about how do we go from this, most of us showed up to this, probably if I'm going to guess each of you probably have a story. You have a story where you were just hanging out, doing your normal life, right? You were just like, things were going maybe okay, maybe they weren't going so okay. You're just being a normal person. Or maybe you're someone who was searching for something, but didn't know where to look. And then, someone came up to you, right? And was like, have you ever heard this thing about the pen? And you're like, what? And you said, yeah, that's, if a dog looks at this object, right, it's not a pen for them, it's a chew toy. And somewhere in there, right, I'm going to imagine each of you have a story of how you had that first encounter with emptiness. What was that first moment where you were like, oh my God, that's it. That's what I've been looking for. Right? That's what I've been tasting behind all the things that I experience. And I would love at some point to like compile everybody's first story. Like, what is your story? Right? And make a little book out of it. And if you're not a storyteller, don't worry. Like, find someone who is a storyteller and we can, you know, turn bullet points into a narrative. Don't worry. Don't get nervous. Like, don't get nervous when you're, asked to do art. you know, but like, what was that first encounter? What was that first almost like eka rasa, that first taste, right? That first moment where you were like, oh, that's it. And I want more of it. And I know there's more to that. Right. Like, why do you keep coming to these classes? Right. Your motivation might be slightly mixed, but like, you wouldn't be wasting your time if you didn't already have that direct experience, you know, and that, and that taste, like that direct experience of understanding, even if it's just a blip, just a single moment, you know, like it's almost like the definition of impermanence, right? A thing which only lasts for a moment, okay, chick, right? Even if you just had that moment of the flower opening up, to understand that what you thought was there is not there, right? Something, and then how do I get that taste back? How do I how do I turn it into a delicious 4-course Valentine's Day meal, right? Which is coming up in a couple of days, right? And it's just not these like morsels of chocolate chips, right? That you just pull out of the cabinet. Like, I have a bag of chocolate chips that I snack on, right? But it's not just these like little raindrops, or then it turns into something a lot more tangible, and it turns into something a lot more consistent. Because once you understand the pen, once you understand, yes, okay, if the pen chew toy thing has any weight at all, you know, then every single thing in the world, every single existing thing, which is a big thing to say, has to be the same way. You know, and I read a lot of scientific articles because I'm a nerd and I'd like to learn what's going on in quantum physics, what's going on in all the research labs. Um, and really they're saying the same thing. They're just annoyed that they can't find the truth. Like they're annoyed that they can't find the objective truth, like the truth of the universe that follows the same rules. You know, oh, by the way, it would be lovely. It'd be so lovely to see more faces so we can share together. All right. There's a thing about there's a thing about trying to see emptiness and studying and building the energy of it when we're together. It's not a yes, it's a unique experience for individuals, but doing it together and looking at each other and being like, yes, I'm not by myself. Right. I think there's incredible power in that. You know, so if you have availability, plus I'd like to see the faces. Like, and additionally, how about this one? I've been, you know, for those of you that come to my classes, you know, like how much I try. So I have a new one, Anastasia. All right, ready? If you want to see the faces of all living beings, which is an experience that happens after seeing emptiness directly, maybe you can start showing your face to all living beings, right? Show up. Who are you? Like, show up as you are. Like, I don't care. Like, if your hair's a mess, I don't care. If you just got out of the shower or just woke up, nice, Francisco, right? You know, who are you? Like, we don't need to be ashamed of who we are. We're trying to do something different, right? Thank you. Look at all these beautiful faces. You know, because I would want, you know, if you can see emptiness directly, right? Which we're going to get to today. If you can have this one experience, this one 20-minute experience under the influence of bodhicitta, like under the influence of this deep, deep desire to serve all living beings, to take care of them. Like the emptiness of space and time open up for you for an infinitely expansive yet infinitely small moment where then you see the faces of all living beings. Like one by one, they appear to you. And you look at them and you go, I'll take care of you. Right. Then the next one comes up and you say, yeah, I got you, dad. I have you, mom. I have you, brother. Right. Then all these one by one, they all show up. Right. Every single one of them, an infinite number of living beings show up, and you make a commitment to them. You make a commitment to them to say, I will do this for you. Right. So showing your face could be one of the seeds. Showing your true self could be one of the seeds for that. All right. So today we're going to go on a little journey of how do we get there, right? How do we open up the door to emptiness? How do we open up the door to something that was never there, right? How do we cancel the thing that was never there that I thought was there? Cancel it perfectly. To have the direct experience of this quote object that has the power to transform you and the entire world, right? And we're blessed to have people to guide us how to do it. I remember, so there was an illegal book printed about, and by illegal I mean not illegal, but there was a book printed that was not supposed to be printed, which is now on the open market. It's now legal, I guess. The Diamond Cutter Press is selling it. It's called Poetry of the Diamond Way. And it's this beautiful, beautiful. It's great that you brought your bird, Maria, for getting him ready for next life. And in that book is this beautiful poetry of the, of a great teacher who had phenomenal experiences, phenomenal Diamond Way experiences, and tried to write about them in poetry. How do you write about something that is an absence? This is my first question, right? How do we talk about this thing, emptiness? Ooh, I need to see emptiness directly. You're probably all here because you want that too, right? Thank you, Grace. She put a picture of it in the chat. Okay. And this poetry is sensual. Like it's not what you would expect from a Tibetan Lama, right? Who talks about all these other like things, serious, right? We're all serious, right? We have to like deny ourselves the pleasures of life, right? To be good practitioners, right? And all of a sudden, this was part of my journey when after I had met the pen. Maybe that's what the book should be called, Meet the Pen. And this book showed up, right? And I'm reading through it and I'm like, oh my God, they're like, this teacher is having like deep experiences of love and connection and sensuality. And I'm like, wait, aren't you a monk? Wait, you're not supposed to do that. Right? You're supposed to be pure. What does pure even mean? Right? And I'm reading through this and I'm reading through it. And in the back of the book, I remember exactly where I was standing. In the back of the book, there's a little, they always give you like a little blurb about the author. Like the author was born in 1951 in the small town of Arizona, right? Went to Princeton University, right? And then there was like very rarely do you see someone's full name, right? And in that, yes, exactly. Yeah, Anastasia is the same book. Grace posted the original copy, the illegal copy, and then we got some editing done. And in the back of the book gave the translator's full name, right? The translator who translated this into English. And then when I saw the translator's full name, I almost fell over, right? Because something that I had suspected, something that I felt, quote, was confirmed in writing, right? I had the seeds that kept coming out of me. Now, I want you to understand this point extremely, it's subtle. And what I'm about to say has nothing to do with anything except the seeds that you have. And not all people are going to have the same seeds. And that's why what I'm going to say right now is also, you have to cherish it if you already haven't heard this, right? My seeds started opening up to see a being who is realized, someone who's realized reality, someone who saw perfectly how things become things. How did they become things? Right. And when I saw the word Arya next to their name, you know, it was like this confirmation of something that I had been looking for my entire life. Like finally I was meeting someone. Finally I had the seeds to meet someone who could potentially teach me, right? Like I wasn't looking for anything else. And I was like, I'm looking around me and there's all these people. We were in a Lam teaching. It was like Lam 3. Okay. Some of you weren't even born yet when we started. Um, and I'm standing there having this incredibly deep, mystical, life changing experience. And I'm looking around me and nobody is noticing. Like I'm standing in the middle of a group of people who were just not paying attention, right? Now, I don't know who they are and I don't know who they were. I don't know any of those things, right? That's not the point. That's how I experienced it. And I was like, all the things I've been looking for was in that one word, 4 English letters, right? And and I think all of us have this desire to get there. Like, how do we open this up? Because if you've been practicing and you're not an Arya yet, you know, what like what keeps us going is how it has changed us. And I've seen many of you change your lives. I've seen so many of you go from struggling with major problems, with major challenges, and you use these ideas to soften into what is for you, and then to plant seeds to create a world that could be free of all of that pain. And I think that's where we need to go. Like, what is it that really motivates us? Like, what motivates us to keep going on this? And I think for me, I really remember the first moment. I was 10 years old, maybe 11 years old. And I had a really, I thought this, it was the weirdest thing. Like I'm 10 years old and I'm thinking, I'm already grateful that I haven't had a lot of suffering in my life. Like I knew stories and I saw the news and all these people who were dying or children losing their parents. You know, I was, I remember like the wars of the 1980s, the end of the 1980s, and then like the wars that started in the Middle East around that time, and like just watching all these people suffering. And I'm sitting in my house and I'm like, how fortunate that my whole family, and even my grandparents were still alive. Everyone was still alive. No one had died in my life. No one. Well, no one that I really remembered. And we were in school one day, and one of my classmates, I think I was, yeah, maybe it was about 10 years old. Yeah, 10 or 11 years old. And all of a sudden Colleen wasn't there, right? She wasn't in school. And, everyone's like, oh, like, what is she sick? Like little kids asking questions, and then we found out that her 6-year-old brother had just died. He had had I believe he had a cardiac event, right? Her 6-year-old brother, right? I had an 8-year-old brother at that point, right? Died, right? And everyone was like, you could watch, you could feel it go through the room of 10-year-olds, right? Like 10-year-olds having this moment of, like you could see the people being like, oh my God, what if my brother died? Or like they could see this like depth of the death experience, and I felt it go through the room. It was like a shockwave. And kids are, kids move really quickly, and we didn't think about it for too long. And where I grew up, and I didn't realize this isn't a tradition everywhere, but where I grew up, there's a whole tradition of how the death process goes, and the whole death process of putting people, like, basically there's, some places it's like one day, but it's like 4 or 5 days of putting the person, like the kid in this case, embalming his body, putting it in a coffin, and then we all go to the funeral home, and everyone goes, and like 3 or 4 nights in a row, right? They go and everyone is paying their respects and saying I'm sorry, and you're watching the family, like I remember her parents. It's just like they were her dad was standing there like a ghost, like couldn't believe it. He'd lost his 6-year-old kid, right? And I just was watching this whole thing, and feeling a kind of gratefulness that it wasn't my family, and not in this guilty way, but this sort of like good fortune way, but also knowing that that good fortune could shift at any moment. And I'm sure a lot of you remember the first person who's died in your life, like someone, close, or someone, family close. And if you haven't, you're lucky. If you haven't got to experience that, like, that's amazing. And so there's like this heaviness and sadness, and you could see the care that everyone was putting towards each other, right? And it was, in a way, there was this grieving. Like I saw my parents there, and they, like, everyone knew what this experience would be like if you lost a child, right? What would that be like? And everyone is like holding each other and crying together, and you know like just telling each other how much they love each other, right? And like this moment of, you could kind of feel it, and it was this moment where you could feel this deep love that was coming out of everybody. And to me, like as this 10-year-old, just being inspired by how tragedy can bring people together, how it can bring us all in. And the most disappointing part of the whole thing was somehow everyone just forgot about it and went on with their life, right? We all forgot that Greg died. We all forgot that Colleen lost her brother, right? I know she didn't. And her life has been marked by so much death. It's just like whatever karma she has, like her best friend, like her best friend died, like in childbirth. Like it just, like, it didn't stop for her, right? Samsara, like grabbed her and was like, you need this, and it's awful to see. And she didn't forget, but I watched her try to forget, right? I watched her try to do things to forget all of it. And every once in a while I'll see her when I go visit my family, just run into her, and you can just see the pain in her, right? She hasn't figured out how to navigate it at all. But her pain turned into grief, and like long lasting grief. And everyone just forgot that Greg died, and they went back to normal. Like, get out of my way, like, got to do something, right? I can't believe this is, like the normal things that people start doing again. And I think it's a defense mechanism a bit. But that love that they were experiencing, the connection that they were experiencing in that funeral home, that's probably one of the truest expressions of love that I've seen between people. Yet they couldn't hold on to it. It just was like, oh, okay, everyone's still alive. Let's just keep going, right? Got to keep moving. Pick yourself up. Let's go. We can't let Greg's death like stop living. And it's true. Like we can't, death is around us all the time, right? Things start, things stop all the time. But that's where all of us are headed. And we're just lucky that we're not there yet. We're just lucky that we didn't have a heart attack at 6 years old. Like, you're lucky that you survived everything. And I'm going to guess a lot of you are probably in have some kind of illness or some kind of sickness that you're going through or trying to survive, or someone who's going through it, right? I watch my dad going through recurrences of cancer, right? He's like, I want to live, right? It keeps trying, but I look at my parents and I'm like, my parents are old. They're old. Like they're old. Like, and we're so lucky that we're here. And yet we spend so much of our time trying to avoid this truth. And we're all in the same boat. We're literally all on the same plane that's crashing. Okay. And I'm sorry to get heavy. And it's so important that we feel this. We're all of us on this Zoom are on the same plane crashing right now. Whether you live for another 50 years or you live for another 5 years, there will be a time, right? There'll be a time when one of you won't be here. We'll have a class and one of you won't be here, right? Who is it going to be? And I'm guessing you're probably thinking it's not going to be me. There will be a last class. There will be a last Dharma class. There will be a last moment. And when I first heard someone say that, I was like, no, that's not going to happen, right? And then it did, and that's why I started getting involved in the tech of ACI. Someone couldn't come to a teaching because she got too old. And I was like, she needs to watch it online. We can do online stuff, right? And so we brought the teachings to her online, and then she died a couple years later. Then we had COVID, and I was like, we need to do everything in Zoom. We need to translate everything into all languages. Thank you, translators. Thank you for making this available to the three of us, right? 9 languages, right? There will be a last Zoom. There will be. Yet we pretend it does. It's not there. And what if we could hold on to that feeling of the plane going down? We're all in the plane together, right? Greg, I can list If you try to list all the people who've died in your life, it's going to be a long list, probably. You know, but what do we do? Like in these moments where the compassion and love opens up, and then you start thinking about things like, oh, the pen. Like, why do I see in some moments people caring for each other and being soft with each other in their pain? And then why do I see moments where people who are in their same pain and I'm not soft with them at all? Like, why do I get upset with someone during a staff meeting when it could be our last staff meeting? Right? I may never see that person again. And what kind of seeds are you planting when you have that attitude? Right? And so this deep love, like this moment of deep love at the funeral home, deep connection. And I hope that many of you have had that experience, not that exact experience, but that experience where you've been with a group of human beings who have let go of the pretense, who let go of the pretending that they're not going to die, and had a genuine moment of caring and compassion for each other, that we're all doing the same, that we're all on the same trip. It just depends when our plane crashes, right? And if all of those things are true, right? If everything is true of what I've said, what about death itself? Is death not just a projection of a seed? Is death not just a seed opening up? Is death not just like the pen and the chew toy? This thing that we spend our lives avoiding. And you look, and it's not just humans that like watch all other living creatures. Every single bug does not want to be smushed, right? No one wants to die, right? Birds, like, oh, look how beautiful that bird is. That bird is lives in a realm of anxiety, constantly like looking for the next, like if they're going to be the next meal, right? And then they're looking for food, right? And then they're worried about, you know, they're worried about my cat who's going to try to eat them, right? I've tried to train her not to eat birds. She did learn that I don't like that she kills. So she learned to, she still has the hunter or the huntress in her. She'll grab things, but won't kill them. And then she brings them to me and she's like, hey, look what I got. And then she'll drop the bird in the house. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I got to get that bird out, right? She still has the dharma. She still has the impulse to catch animals, but she doesn't always eat them or kill them, right? Maybe she's learned something. But if death is something as the experience of death, the projection of death of others, or mainly the death of yourself, if that's a projection too, that's just a seed opening up, right? Right. If a different being was looking at it, would they see the same thing? And that's an interesting philosophical question, right? if a pen is not a pen and a chew toy is not a chew toy, then death is not a death. If you argue for one, you can't argue for, you have to argue for the other. Right? And if you could have that complete, true, direct experience of emptiness, then who, right? Then all things are possible, because then you know exactly how everything works. So keep this in mind, like why are we talking about what we're doing and why are we doing it this way? We're 45 minutes in and I haven't said a thing about how to see emptiness directly. Right? You have no notes yet on that. But like, why did we take this trip? Why did we take this trip? Right? And it might be different for each of you, but there's a reason we took this trip, and we're going to talk about it at the end. So I started with, I'll just kind of make sure I get my notes here. Right. So we started with this idea of, we start in ACI 13, right? We start with talking about what makes for a perception, what makes for a valid perception, like what's a correct or what's a valid perception and what's a invalid perception. Right? And there's this whole thing in the second school about what makes for, how do we define that? And we discussed like an accurate perception is fresh and unerring, right? Not mixed up with some kind of intense mental affliction, which I think a lot of you probably think you're having accurate perceptions, but you are having a mental affliction. That's a good question to ask, by the way. Kat has caught me in a few of those. She's like, Tim, are you sure that's what's going on? And I'm like, no, I'm not sure. Maybe it's your affliction, dummy. Like, she's really good at like pointing out the other option. It could be something else. And I'm like, yeah, Kat, you're right. It could be something else. Right. But my affliction forces me to believe that it's this way. Like every asshole in my life wasn't coming from me. Of course not. They're the idiot. They're the dummy. They're the mean one. Right? There's no way that that person's coming from me. I didn't do anything. I just was sitting here. Right? And so, like, there's a way to think about it, because everyone's like, but if I'm having accurate perceptions according to the second school all the time, like I'm looking around the room, cat, chair, light bulb, picture, setting, the moon set, right? The rising sun, clouds, right? I'm looking at all these things, door. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong looking at, when I'm like, what is wrong with the world that I'm looking at? And it's true. Like, there's nothing wrong. You're looking at a window, you're looking at a door, right? You're having an accurate perception about the thing that you're seeing. You're having a valid perception. But what's wrong about it is the content of it. Like, separate how do I say this? Separate the object, the thing you're looking at or perceiving, from the content of it. And what I mean by this, it's the way you feel about it. It's the way you take the object. When you're looking at the door, the way that you take it, the way that you feel about the door is the inaccurate perception. And what do I mean by this? And this is, you have to get this, because you looked at the door and you were like, oh, somebody built that door 20 years ago. The wood in the door came from a tree and it was cut down in Canada. And then it was brought down to the United States. And then it was nailed into the frame, right? And then someone was here and they pounded it into the wall, right? And then they put some oil on it so it opens and closes without making noises. And you think that's why the door is there. Now, careful. This I didn't say that the wood didn't come from a forest in Canada, right? I didn't say that someone didn't cut that wood into a particular shape and nail it into the door, nail it into the frame, right? I didn't say those things didn't happen. But if you believe that's why the door is there, you're mistaken. Okay? It's subtle. It's extremely subtle. Why is the door there? And then this gets into the whole discussion for today. Okay, this gets into how do we see something as something? Okay, we're just going to go diving into it. Okay, you're all warmed up. And how does a door become a door? Right? And how does a pot become a pot? How does a pen become a pen? How do you become you? Were you just a sperm and an egg? Right? That came together in a moment of passion between your parents. Is that why you're here? And then your cells split and then they split again and they split again. And then all of a sudden, you know, 9 months later, you come out, right? And then you're like in the world and that's why you're here. And the thing is, it's not that those things didn't happen, but how did they happen? Okay. And you know, this is where I'm trying to pull people out of the extreme. All right. It's subtle. It's incredibly subtle. Don't think you don't think that your parents didn't have passionate lovemaking and the sperm and the egg came together. That did happen. Okay. Right. But how does something become something for you? How did you become you? Right. And how do you interact with that? And this gets us into a whole discussion of image. We're calling them mental images. And the whole point of this is that the way that a door becomes a door, if you misunderstand it, it sends you into a dark forest, right? It sends you into a deep, dark place where nothing works. And everything just ends in frustration. Everything just looks random. And then we're trying to manipulate things in that world without even knowing how they became something for us. And if we misunderstand how it became something, then there's no way that we can do anything about it. So just understanding that a pen is a pen for you and a chew toy is a chew toy for a dog is a great first step, but you need more. You need more to understand how that pen became a pen for you. Right. And that pen is not a pen by itself. So a pen that exists without you is not a pen. And so a pen that you feel is a pen out there, that you take as out there, that's what's incorrect. And in fact, you're having all those incorrect perceptions all the time if you're not an Arya. And even if you are an Arya, you're still seeing it incorrectly. You just don't believe it anymore. So we're trying to get into this space of images. Like, how does something become something? And this is why clear thinking is so important. Because how did that pen become a pen? Like, how did that object show up for you? Because I've said this many times over and over again, is that you're never looking at a pen. You could never have been looking at a pen, and you never were looking at a pen. The proof, the dog. But that's not enough to prove it to you. It's not enough to change, right? Right? So we have this coffee cup, right? And you're looking at it. Are you looking at the coffee cup? If somebody says no, I'm going to fire you. I want you to refer to your your quote normal perceptions. Are you looking at a coffee cup? It has some great espresso in it. All right. I made it all by myself. Okay. Right. You think you're looking at a coffee cup, right? But look, like, are you looking at the whole coffee cup? Does anyone have an idea of what is back here? Can anyone see what's going on back here? Watch my fingers back here. Use your deductive logic. Does anybody know what's going on back here? Can anyone see what's going on up here? You guys just assume that that's a coffee cup. There could what if there's just a flat top there, right? There's no coffee cup. Maybe there's no coffee in it to begin with. Oh, Tim, but I saw you take a sip from it earlier. Oh, so you saw a sip from a past. So therefore, it has to be a coffee cup now. Are you perceiving it directly? No, I don't think you are. That memory you have of me sipping the coffee is what you're using it in your deductive reasoning. You're using it using clear thinking to say that this is a coffee cup. But how does it now? This is where we're going to go today. How does it become a coffee cup? Right? How is it that you can see a few things right here? Your eyes do not see coffee cup, even if it looks like you're seeing it. It's impossible. And I can prove it to you. Just come to Phoenix and I'll take you to my eye therapy doctor. And I'll hook you up to the machine that'll prove it to you that you're not looking at anything. Your eyes aren't seeing anything. I'm working with them, Kat, by the way, to like have a field trip to take students for like, for $100, we can go in and like play with all their toys to prove to you that your eyes only see colors and shapes. And when you can have a machine in this normal world show you that you only see colors and shapes. I was talking to the managing director because I'm trying to figure out how to make this possible. And she's like, yeah, your eyes don't see anything. And I'm like, who are you? And she's like, yeah, you just see some shapes of things and then your brain puts it all together into a cohesive visual image. And that's what we do here. We teach you how to have a cohesive image in your brain so you can function in the world. And so I tested her a little bit. I was like, first of all, I'm suspicious as hell. I'm like, why does Tim happen to find the one weird eye clinic, right? Right, that one weird eye clinic where they're just like they're talking about emptiness the whole time, right? So I tested her and I was like, well, if that's true, I did the whole like thing, right? I was, sitting there thinking, and I said, well, if that's the case, how do I know that the image that I'm putting together is the same image that you're putting together? Like if we're looking at the same things, her name's Karen. We're looking at the same things, Karen. Like then how do I know that what I'm the pieces that I'm putting together are the same pieces that you're putting together? And she was like, and that's the beauty of life. I was like, okay. Like obviously Karen's a suspicious Buddha working in an eye clinic, right? I'm like, okay, Karen, great. Thanks for the conversation. I'm glad we had this. I'm glad I'm paying you $100 a week to come here. You know, fix my eyes. Let's go. Like, fix my perceptions, Karen. Right. And they have, but they didn't get fixed because I went to the eye clinic. Okay. So you can't look at the coffee cup. Impossible. How do you how are you interacting with it? How does it become a coffee cup? And how does a pot become a pot? And how do you become a you? And how can you look at death and perhaps see death in a different way? Coffee cups to death. That's a good name for a book. Maybe a good name for a program, right? How do we go quickly from there to there? And if you've been paying attention the whole class, you're with me. You're like, there is no functional difference between the two. They function exactly the same way. Your perceptions, you're only perceiving some parts and then it's being projected as death. Okay, maybe that's a little too far for you. Maybe we went a little too far. Let's talk about your negative emotions, your anger, or the thing that you're putting together that looks like the thing that's pissing you off. Right. Or I'm starting to feel like I want to talk more about positive things. I don't know. Like I use these sort of because I know that I have these emotions and I'm trying to like, relate to people. But I'm kind of in the mood to be like, what if we focus more on like, why do I see that beautiful person? Like, I don't see the whole person, but why does the sounds that come out of them sound like angel voices? And why do they have kindness and beauty and sexiness and whatever it is for you? Okay. But why? Have you ever, okay, this is terrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. Have you ever looked at a couple and been like, how does that work? Like one of them is like gorgeous 10 plus and the other one's like 3 or a 2, right? So this is kind of a joke, right? But you're like, how does that work? And then it's just like, you have no idea what those people are seeing in each other. You have no idea. And when you truly understand love, those things, like there isn't beauty and ugliness. There isn't a 10 and there isn't a 2. They're not there. The only thing is there is your seeds to see what's there. So if you see a couple and you're like, how is one person so hot and the other person not? That says more about you than the couple. That shows you that you're probably divisive in your world. that you're just like, oh God, how could they love each other? Or how could, one love the other person? Come on. Come on. That's your seed. I'm sorry. That's your habit of judging other people. That's your habit of being divisive. That's your habit of not loving people. And maybe it's also maybe a habit of not loving yourself. Right? Ooh, did that hurt a little bit? It hurt when I thought it about myself. Like the fact that I even have this example maybe has to do with old seeds of not loving myself and wanting someone to love me and feeling ugly and unlovable. Right? Maybe that's why I see a 2 with a 10. Okay. And then judge them. Okay. Are you seeing a 2 and a 10? No, your eyeballs are not. Impossible. Okay. So how do we get at that mental image, right? Because what's happening is very simply, and I sometimes think like we overcomplify it, and that's not even a word. We overcomplicate it. The opposite of simplify is complify. Okay. We make things more difficult than they need to be. But we have a pattern of negative emotions that hold on. So we're looking at a few things and then we're like, boom, a 10, boom, a 2, right? Boom, jealousy. Actually, it's probably, if you want another seed for that, it's probably jealousy. Like you're probably looking at yourself and like, I don't deserve a 10 and I'm jealous that the 2 got a 10, right? The shadow of greed. But we're only looking at a few things. There's only a few indicators that get put together, and then somehow that becomes the perfect reality for us. Reality is nothing less than perfect. It's just you don't experience it perfectly. There's nothing that's not working in your world. Think about that. There's nothing that's not working. It's just you're not happy with the results of it. It's working just fine. The system is the system is working. But if you understand how it works, then that's why it's possible to create something where maybe you don't have to die. The people around you don't have to. Or maybe you're just looking for a little bit of comfort that you're not so afflicted by how you feel about yourself. Because how you feel about yourself is also a seed. Whether you feel confident or you have low self-esteem or you judge yourself as unlovable or you have some pride or whatever it is, like that's just a seed too. There's just some parts that you're putting together that creates your experience of you. But when you have only a few indicators and you're interacting with them as a full perfect coffee cup or a full perfect you, something is going on that's not what we thought was going on. And how do we get at those images and how do we understand how they're made and how do we change them and how do we create that perfect world? That's my question. Yes, cat's like, yes. Okay, that's my question. So we're gonna start. We're gonna start. I've been here an hour. We're gonna start with a meditation. Okay, some of you may have done this meditation, and it's worth doing again. Okay. Because what we're doing in this class is I'm giving you all these different angles. We're building something, right? And I'm coming at different angles. The whole picture is going to come together at the end. Get it? The logical flow is we're putting pieces together so that we can open something up, open up an absence. Okay. Get ready to meditate. All right. And let's soften our eyes. And feel your breath moving through your body. Feel the sensations of your exhales and your inhales. And then bring to mind somebody that you admire. And don't just bring to mind them, bring to mind the quality in them, the thing that you admire about them. And begin to cultivate an emotion around it, not just an emotion of, wow, that's really cool that they have it. But also a feeling of, I have the seeds to see this. The quality that they have that maybe I would like. Somehow I already have this because I'm seeing it in the world. I'm seeing somebody that has this. And if you're having difficulty bringing up a good emotion around that, think of something that just automatically brings you joy. Maybe it's a smile from your child, or that one friend that's always joking perfectly at the right time. And then once you feel it, immediately transfer it over to the quality that you're seeing in that person you admire. And then as another way to celebrate the good quality that they have is give that person something nice, something that you know that they will like as an act of gratitude. like as a thank you for being you. And because we do not yet have that, and we're aspiring to have that quality in ourselves, to embody it ourselves in me, in the me. Look around in the last couple of days that did you do something that created a block for that quality to arise in you? Is there something that you're doing, even in a very small way, that could ripen to prevent you from having that great quality that that person has? And maybe it's just simple laziness that you're not planting the seeds for it. Whatever it is, just take a moment to acknowledge that that's going on without guilt, but simply to bring awareness to it. And then turn over to the goodness that's going on in your life. Find one thing to rejoice in the last day of your in your own goodness, in your own kindness. And then ask this person to keep teaching you how to embody that goodness, the goodness you see in them, and to teach you in all the ways that you need. And that might be in ways that are uncomfortable. And then ask them to stay close to you. And then we're going to return to our breath, noticing the sensations of the breath in the body. And now I'm going to lead you through. I'm going to say some words to you. And some of you may have done this meditation, and it's worth doing over and over and over again. So I'm going to say a word. And then what image pops up in your mind? So I'm going to say coffee cup. What is the image that comes into your mind? Next word, a coffee cup. What's the difference between a coffee cup and then coffee cup? And now a third one, the coffee cup, the coffee cup that you drink out of. So we'll go through it again. Clear your mind, return to your breath, focusing on the sensations of your breath. So, coffee cup. What does a general archetypal coffee cup look like? Like, what does that idea coffee cup look like before it's a coffee cup in the real world? Where did that idea coffee cup come from? When was the first time you saw a coffee cup? Now, a coffee cup. What image comes to your mind? And then the coffee cup that's on your table. And then spend the next few moments cycling through what is the difference between coffee cup, general coffee cup, a coffee cup, and the coffee cup, which is characteristic of coffee cup. And return back to your breath. And then from your heart, see a golden light full of all the good seeds of the meditation. See that golden light leave your body and spread out. And making an offering to someone who needs extra help, maybe to a city or a country, or perhaps to the whole universe. And take 3 long exhales and open your eyes. All right. All right. So I wanted to go through the meditation first before we went into an explanation of it. So you would have a feeling. And the meditation seems deceptively simple. It might seem a little weird or not very profound. And if you keep practicing it, not only with coffee cups, maybe with cars, maybe with anything you see in the world, a plate, maybe your teacher, maybe your partner, right? Maybe the subtle body. I don't know. What are the, you can put anything in there. Like, all right, meditate. Like, what is the image that comes to mind of subtle body, right? When we talk about the first one, coffee cup, plate, partner, subtle body, right? Where we kind of put these, we tend to describe it as quote, right? And what image comes to mind? Like if I just say the word coffee cup, what pops up? And typically, what pops up is what we call the archetype, like the archetype of cup, the archetype of the archetype of coffee cup, car, subtle body. Like, when was the first time that someone taught you about coffee cup? Like, what was the first coffee cup you had in this lifetime, right? Like when I really explore it over time, like the archetype coffee cup for me is a particularly it's a particular design. It has it's a black coffee cup. You know, it's kind of it's not like this, right? It has a different shape. Um, um, but it was the first coffee cup that I learned. It was like the coffee cup that when my mom had it on the table and I was a young lad and I was just learning about things and I was like, "Mommy, what's that?" And mom's like, "Coffee cup." And I'm like, "Wobble cup?" Right? I can't pronounce things yet. And she's like, "No, coffee cup." And I'm like, "Badu cup," right? Whatever came out of my mouth, right? She's like, "No, coffee cup," right? And so that was the first coffee cup I saw. And so when I do this meditation, I'm like, that's kind of the one that shows up. It's kind of fuzzy, but it's also like perfect. It's like the perfect coffee cup, right? And actually, it's this funny thing in my, well, it's not a funny thing. And my mom gets really still irritated about it. But my mom was like, "This is my coffee cup." She's so attached to it, right? You know, it's the one coffee cup that she likes, right? And I don't know, my dad took it to work one day for some reason. He probably was super tired in the morning. I was up all night crying, you know, little baby or something. He just pulls the coffee cup up, takes it to work, and then he loses mom's coffee cup. Ooh, ooh, right? So this black coffee cup is like the story of our life in the family. Like, I can't believe you took my coffee cup. Like, I'm like, "Mom, it was 40 years ago." Like, but I'll buy you a coffee cup. No, it's not the same thing. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. And then I'm, you know, in my mind, I'm like, whatever. And then I'm like, well, maybe mom's teaching me something about coffee cups. Like now that I'm looking at it, right? Like maybe mom was trying to be like, how does a coffee cup become a coffee cup? Right. So you have this general idea, like coffee cup, perfect coffee cup, like the thing that's in your mind. And that archetype becomes the archetype that you refer to anytime you look at the or a coffee cup or the coffee cup, right? And I kind of jumped the gun here. So when you think of the coffee cup, like this is the one that came to mind when I was meditating, right? I was like, the coffee cup. This is actually currently my favorite one. It's a little black one. And I almost lost it the other day, right? And I had that same emotion that I think my mom had when dad lost her coffee cup, right? I like my coffee cup, right? So this is the real one. Like this is the real coffee cup, right? This is the real one. Like the coffee cup. This is the one that comes out of my mind. And then, excuse me, this is the one that's just sitting on the table, right? Sitting up over there. I was like, hey, coffee cup, let's put some espresso in you this morning. And then coffee cup goes, perfect. I'm ready to go, right? The coffee cup, right? But when I think of coffee cup, right? Like generals, like the most general coffee cup, the archetype, the image that comes up in my mind is that black one of the one that my mom showed me when I was a kid. Right. And then we had this idea in the middle of a coffee cup, like not the specific coffee cup you're drinking of, but just coffee cups, like a coffee cup. Right. And what is the difference between the coffee cup general in your mind, archetype, and a coffee cup? And what's the difference between the coffee cup on the table? And this is not just some simple exercise at all, because this can crack the code of emptiness if you do this over and over again. But so how do we work with that? Like what is going on, right? I perceive some parts, a little bit of round, a little bit of black, kind of a certain shape. And then my mind goes through all the archetypes that it could be. And I go, not a banana, not a car, not a cat, not a partner, not food, right? Not a sky. And my mind cancels all the archetypes of what it could be. And then it goes, then every other archetype is canceled. And then there's just one that remains. And the one that remains is coffee cup. So what's happening according to this school is that the reason you get to coffee cup is because you've taken the opposite of everything that's not coffee cup. You made a pile of junk over there that's not coffee cup. Meditation cushion, cat, food, sky, light bulb, everything, right? Everything that's not the coffee cup, the opposite of the coffee cup. You make a pile over there. And then then your mind cancels all of those things, takes the reverse of all of those things, and then you get the coffee cup. And this is not just a stupid mental exercise. Okay. Get that out of your mind. It's not a stupid mental exercise. Oh, so the coffee cup is the opposite of the opposite of what it's not? Yes, that's the coffee cup. Sorry, translators, I'll do it again. Are you saying that the opposite of everything that's not the coffee cup, which is all the stuff over there, If I take the reverse of that, that's what my coffee cup is? Yes. Right? So, what is the relationship between these mental images, right? These archetypes? Because we already said that your eyes cannot see things. Your senses don't see things. Your senses don't see coffee cup. Your senses don't see, anything. But something is putting those parts together to create it for you. And that's what we call the mental image, the perfect mental image. Kat, I was just thinking about, that meditation I did like 3 years ago, like walking through the forest in the trees. Yeah. I was just thinking that like we need to do a whole class on just this. Like we are doing a whole class, but like this could be a full course. Maybe we could teach this together at some point. I think this would be a lot of fun. So, but catch this. You're never looking at a coffee cup. You're looking at some shapes, colors, indicators. And then all of a sudden you say, oh, that's a coffee cup. And now I'm interacting with the coffee cup. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? You're looking at the image in your mind. You're looking at perfect coffee cup. You were never looking at anything else. It was impossible. It's impossible that you're looking at things it's impossible that you're looking at what you think you're looking at. And because of that impossibility or the lack of awareness of that impossibility, that's why we have so much suffering. Because you take the door to be a door and you take somebody's vision of the world to be out there by itself. And then you disagree with it. And then you argue with it. And then you create all these patterns. What happens is you, I don't know, this is my theory right now. Either we develop a pattern of like self-loathing or we develop a pattern of delusions of grandeur out of it, right? And those become the problems of the world. And that becomes the source of all conflict and the source of all war. And the source of why resources are not fairly distributed and why some people suffer and other people suffer more than others. Because we misunderstand what's going on. If you want to stop those things, you need to understand that what's going on in your world is an impossibility. Everything you see and everything you have a reaction to is impossible. Oh, Tim, but I read it in the news. Oh, you read some colors and shapes in a newspaper that had words on it, that little squiggles on it, and then you're upset about it? Or oh, no, but I watched the news. Oh, you're looking at some pixels on the screen? You're not looking at that. And I want to be very clear. I am not saying that those things are not happening. I'm not saying there's not war. I'm not saying that people aren't being hurt. I'm not saying that bombs aren't falling. And I'm not saying that people are suffering and starving. I'm not saying those things. This is why this is so tricky. But they aren't there the way you thought they were there. You can't be perceiving them. You are putting them together. Your mind is putting them together. Your seeds are putting them together. The images you have in your mind are perfected perfections out of what you're, how do I say this? That's interesting. Everything you're perceiving is, it's not even an approximation of what it is. It's not it. Yet you have a feeling that it is. And that's the misperception about everything, including your emotions and including your thoughts and including your concept of me. Meaning you, not me. I mean, you've concept of me too, but the me. All of those things are coming from, you're interacting with perfected images in your mind. And you're mistaking them for the outer world. And I didn't say the outer world wasn't there. It's not what I'm saying. Don't get stuck in mind only school either. Okay. Well, what's the point of this? Like, what's the point? If a human can see a pen and a dog can see a chew toy, and I see this body, why can't I see something else? Right? Why do I have seeds to put this thing together in this way? This conglomeration of meat and bones, right? Because it doesn't have to be that way. So how do we get to have that experience, right? So the culminating experience of understanding everything we just talked about would be something like, if you do that meditation over and over again, along with some other things we're going to talk about in a second, could you see yourself interacting with the world in the way that it is, to prove to yourself that that it is that way? Can you achieve a insight into how a seed opens? Like, I look at this coffee cup and I'm like, hi, coffee cup, right? I don't go, oh, there's some parts here. What is it? No, it's coffee. Like, it just becomes it immediately. But could you have an experience where you could see yourself actually doing it? The making, the making of the world for you, right? Could you have that experience? Could you be looking at these colors and shapes, and maybe it's under the influence of certain practices, right? Maybe it's under the influence of serving your teacher or serving someone who's very special to you, right? Maybe you're making a cup of coffee for your teacher, right? You know, you're putting the espresso together and you're doing all the things, right? And you're just waiting for, like, you know, you're just waiting for the espresso machine to warm up, right? And maybe under the influence of your daily study, right? When you're just sitting in class after class, right? And thinking about these things over and over and over again. And you're doing, on top of that, then you're doing your meditations. Like, you're doing that meditation. What's the difference between coffee cup, a coffee cup, and the coffee cup, right? Put other objects in there, right? Things that make sense to you. Under the influence of taking care of people in need. Like, on Sunday, a lot of people went to the nursing home. Here, there was a big program here for YSI, right? And they took care of, like, the old people, the lonely people, right? You don't have to go very far. You don't have to do these grandiose acts of service. Okay. You don't have to do that. Like, just take care of the people around you. You know, so under the influence of serving maybe a teacher, Maybe your partner is your teacher. Maybe your child is your teacher. Seeing someone in a high way under the influence of study, constant study, under the influence of constant meditation. I'm sorry, if you want to disqualify yourself, just don't meditate. Okay. Under the influence of serving other people, just people in need. Under the influence of maybe having some kind of movement practice, dance or yoga or qigong or something, tai chi, something that gets your body moving, but also is designed to work on your subtle body too. Subtle body. Then one day you're looking at the coffee cup in the espresso machine. You're looking at the coffee cup, and then something weird happens. All of a sudden, you're like, you don't see the coffee cup. You're perceiving directly some color. Don't leave. Don't lose the moment right now. There's a reason why that microphone went on. Stay with me. In that moment, you see directly the colors and shapes. And then you see in your mind the seed opening up. And you see that luminous image open up in your mind, like tiny. And then it goes, it's like and then it goes coffee cup. And then as it's going out, coffee cup, it goes the coffee cup. And you see directly that first time you see a seed opening up in your mind. And then you see perfectly, oh my God, that's how everything has become something for me. That's how my world becomes my world. That's how suffering becomes suffering. And that's how paradise becomes paradise. And we want to get to that experience. Because if you can get to that experience, then it triggers everything else. You don't want to see emptiness directly. You want to see dependent origination directly. Stop wanting to see emptiness. See dependent origination. Because that then triggers the direct perception of emptiness. Because then after you give that cup of coffee to your teacher, then you go sit in meditation and you drop into the direct perception of emptiness. And then when you come out of that experience, there's a whole series of realizations that happen. There's 16 of them. But also what happens is what we talked about in the beginning. Where you start seeing the faces of all living beings, one after another. That's why I want to see your faces. I want to see who you are. Who's here? I want you to see everyone's faces, right? Because you're the one who's going to be taking care of them. You're the one who's going to make the commitment to help each and every one of them because you understand perfectly how those faces can be faces. And you understand perfectly how you understand perfectly why you have to take care of everyone. And so how do we get there? Like, how do we get to that experience? Like those primary seeds, right? Serving a teacher. And I'm not talking about, teachers come in so many different ways. So don't get obsessed. Find someone to serve, find someone who helps you and help them. They don't need your help. You need the help. That's why you serve them, not because they need anything. And then you study and you just come to classes like this over and over again. You finish your 18 ACI courses, and then you take the next 18 ACI courses, and then you take 47. Then you take 47 Lam Rims, and then you go, oh, I'm going to take another 4 Lam Rims before Geshe Michael teaches Diamond Way again. And then you go to translation classes and you become obsessed with learning every single way it is that you can get to that experience. And then you do your meditations. You get up in the morning or in the afternoon or before you go to bed, whenever it works for you. And you just sit your hiney down on that cushion or in that chair and you just do it. Or then you're just like, I have to do this. And you're like, I have to do retreat. And you go into 25 days of deep retreat. You know, and you leave the quote world to create the perfect world. And then through all of that and your service to other people who need something, you recognize the key point. And this is where we're going to end today. To get all of those things, you have to be able to plant the seeds. You have to be able to serve a teacher, you have to plant seeds to serve a teacher. To have a teacher, you need to plant seeds to serve a teacher. To be able to meditate, you have to take care of others. You have to keep doing these seed planting projects. To get your ideal partner, you have to cancel everything that's not them. And then stop doing the things that you don't want. Do you want I want a partner who doesn't complain. Well, then cancel all the complaining in your life. You're complaining. Stop complaining about other people. Stop writing messages and telling people they're idiots. Stop. That's not going to help you get anywhere. And here's the main point. Okay. Who are you? When you say, I am me, who am I? Who am me? Who is me? Who is me? I am the opposite of everything, of everyone that's not me. Every living being in the universe is the opposite of me. If I cancel every living being in the universe, I cancel everything that's not me, all of those living beings, then I get to me. I'm the opposite of everybody I'm not. It's impossible to be me without you. It is impossible to be me without you. And recognizing others is what creates me. Me, a me, and the me. And what brings all of that together, that's what love is. That I need to love every single one of them to ever get anything from me. It's impossible to get anything from me if I don't understand how me is me because of you. And I can't get anything in the real world without understanding that. It's impossible because everything you thought was how things worked isn't possible. And that's why I have to take care of you. And that's why we have to love each other. And that's why when someone dies and we take care of each other, that deep feeling that we have for each other, that we know that this this journey isn't that long and it's not forever. And then we just take care of each other. Keep that feeling and use that all the time. Don't give up on that. Don't just go to the funeral home and feel connected to people in that way and then live your life as though Greg didn't die, you know. And then maybe something completely amazing is possible. Maybe something more amazing is possible than you could even pretend to imagine or try to imagine. And that's why we need each other. And that's why the 4 steps work. And if you understand that in anything you're doing, you can go from worldly success all the way to total spiritual success. From coffee cups to no death, no problem. It's all the same. It's all the same if you understand what sameness means. Let's close our eyes again. And let's take a few moments to sit in silence, to think about what we've heard about today, what we are doing together, what we're trying to do. And then see all of that as a beautiful golden light in your heart. And see that light first reach out to every single person who's listening today on this beautiful Tuesday morning. And see that light connecting with each other. And as we're all over the globe, see it as a network of golden light. And then see those lines of light connected to each other expand in all directions, downwards, upwards, encircling the whole planet. And then make a wish that what that world would be like if every single living being understood that to get what they wanted, they had to give it to somebody else first. What would the planet look like? And take 3 deep breaths, returning back to your heart, withdrawing all of that inwards into the center of you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right. Thank you all for joining today. It's wonderful to see everybody. For those of you who were here for the whole course, congratulations. You have now finished ACI 13. Maybe you have some homeworks to do still. Please do them. Just copy the answers down and put them in. Don't worry about it. Don't tell people I told you that. Don't tell them that the ACI director said just copy the homework. Thank you all. I'm very happy that you're all here. We have a lot of things coming up in the near future, some amazing programs. We are going to be starting, Geshe will be teaching Diamond Way in 2026. And the courses that ACI is teaching, the primary courses we're teaching with Geshe will be a preparation for that. So news will be coming out very soon about that. So please look for that. If you're feeling called to that path, the Diamond Way path, the preparation this year is going to be incredible, and it's also required. So the courses will be online if you can't come to us in person. It's going to be an amazing year getting ready so that we can all develop these beautiful practices together. So thanks for joining. I'm very happy that all of you are here. Thank you, translators. I tried to be gentle today. Thank you. Thank you, all the tech people. Thank you, all the recorders. Thank you for making the courses possible, everyone at ACI. So, yeah, please stay, everybody. Yeah, let's say goodbye to each other, and we'll see each other soon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Cảm ơn thầy.
Thank you.
Please stay.
Thank you.
Vâng,
Thank you,
thầy nhiều
teacher.
lắm.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
谢谢天老师，谢谢。
Please stay. Please stay. Please stay.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please stay.
so much.
Stay.
Thank you so much. Please stay.
Thank you.
Biết ơn thầy Tiên, tạm biệt cả nhà mình.
Yeah.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
我这边
谢谢 Tim 老师，谢谢翻译老师。
What's your name, Tim?
Oh, we have a cat saying goodbye, everyone. Thank you. That's amazing. Hopefully I'll see Juan very soon. Yay. Bye. All right, everyone. Hope to see you soon. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
sí.